Good morning you guys, it's Karen and I am here to tell you why I would never buy an Australian Labradoodle puppy again. And this is not to put you off, but it's to give you food for thought. And I think a lot of you, maybe even most of you, will be really surprised at me saying this, because I love Watson more than life itself. You know, he is like my baby boy. We don't have children. He is our child. He is our world, and we dote on him. But there are so many reasons and so many things I've learned since being a first-time dog owner. Although I grew up with dogs, it's completely different when you aren't responsible for them. You know, when you actually get one yourself, everything changes and it's a whole new ball game. First, there's so many reasons I've got, so it's not just one, so I apologise, it's probably a long video. The number one reason is that breeding is nothing but a business. Let's be honest about it. And I did a video, I don't even know if that video is still up, but I did a video back when we got Watson whereby I explained why we had gone to a breeder, because we actually wanted to rescue a dog, but we went to quite a few rescue organisations who basically said that dogs that are so-called hypoallergenic don't really come up very often, and when they do, they're gone within, you know, they arrive and are gone within a couple of days, and so it could be years that we would be waiting to get one. I'm sort of annoyed at most of those responses, to be honest, because I feel like they should have been more encouraging to us and even given us false hope. But I have seen now lots of dogs that we could have rescued, not just Labradoodles, but Schnauzers are low shedding, though maybe not hypoallergenic to everybody, but poodles, Shih Tzus are low shedding, and I've had those type of dogs in the house and not had an issue. So we went to a breeder. We didn't actually even want a puppy at first. We thought that would be too much work, but it just seemed to be the only way that we could get a dog in our life, so we went to a breeder. But like I said, breeding is simply business, and I know that our breeder was a good breeder, that they did all the right health scores and hip scores and eye scores, and I saw the mother and we went to see them a couple of times, and she actually made different dogs you know, lick my face and me get really close to make sure I wasn't allergic to them and to make sure my husband wasn't allergic, because that was our issue. So she was a really responsible breeder, but I know at least 2 of the puppies that were in the litter that Watson came from that are in homes whereby they're in a crate all day long. And so it's just wrong that so many babies are being born, so many puppies are being born, and it's just because they're a cute dog that people want them, or because of their reputation as being the perfect dog, which is just not the full story. Number 2 is that the personality can never be predicted in an Australian Labradoodle. I know an Australian Labradoodle that is aggressive, although they generally aren't, and my Watson is a very different Labradoodle, and everybody talks about that. People that are in our doodle group say how different he is. The walker can't believe how different he is, because he is doodle-like in that he's crazy and he's energetic and he's intelligent, but Labradoodles are thought to be very affectionate. But most of the Labradoodles that I know closely aren't cuddlers, aren't affectionate. And I wanted a dog that was affectionate and that I could, because I was, you know, working from home, that I could sit and stop for a minute and kind of stroke and just spend time with. And the hope was that it would help with my anxiety, that it would help with my blood pressure, and that it would be kind of a calming effect on me. I mean, ironically, I have ended up being calmer, but at first I was way more stressed. Watson is not affectionate. He's not interested in cuddles. If you see pictures of Watson cuddling me or on my lap or videos, it's because I've trained him to snuggle, and I will capture that on video because it's so rare. It happens maybe once a month we get a cuddle from him, and it lasts like less than 5 minutes. So you can't predict the personality of the dog you're getting, because it isn't a pedigree. It is a combination. The Australian Labradoodle is a combination of 3 dogs, and the Labradoodle is a combination of 2, and so you cannot predict what you're going to get. Number 3 is the exercise requirements, or the entertainment requirements of an Australian Labradoodle or of a Labradoodle. There are now so many Labradoodles in rescue centres because the owners didn't realise how much work they were and how much it would take to keep them calm and not destructive, and also to give them a good life, although most people are just concerned with how destructive they can be. But an Australian Labradoodle is a combination of a poodle, highly intelligent, a cocker spaniel, highly energetic, and a lab. And the combination of that means that they generally need a huge amount of exercise, but additionally to that, they need brain games and brain training and something to do with their mind as often as possible, not just once a week. And I find this is not just with Watson, I found it with every dog I groomed. Just yesterday, we went for a walk in the hills and I met a guy who was like, you know, I'm walking my little dog 4 times a day and she's not tired out. What am I doing wrong? Whereas I was saying, you've got to do mind games. You cannot just do physical exercise. They're so intelligent. They need to have training and they need to go to school. You know, they need a purpose. And so with Watson, we were told we would need to take him for a 20-minute walk in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening, and if we took him out at lunchtime, that was a bonus. There's just no way he can survive on that. He would just be too restless and it wouldn't be a good life for him. A good life for him is having 3 good walks a day and having some training or scent games or, you know, scent toys, something where he can use his mind every day. That's a big commitment, and I don't know whether many people realise that. And I think there's a lot of people that would say they don't need all that, and absolutely they could survive with less than that. But they say about doodles that if you do not keep them occupied, they will entertain themselves, meaning they will destroy things. You know, I know labs can be a bit like this, and maybe it's the lab part of them, but if Watson never gets to that stage, but if we left him, the closest we've got is when we were both ill and there was about a 6-hour stretch where he didn't go for a walk or have anything, and that's unusual for him. And he pulled my hairband off of the sofa. It was on it doesn't really matter, but he could easily turn destructive if not entertained enough. And I know a lot of doodles that have done that. So Watson has turned out to be way more work than I ever could have imagined. And so that's one of the reasons that I wouldn't go for an Australian Labradoodle again, because I believe that in order for them to have a good life, they would need to really be taken on by somebody that was retired or that worked part-time and that wanted to concentrate their spare time on their dog. Number 3, the reason I wouldn't have another Australian Labradoodle is health. Whilst there are a lot of Labradoodles and Australian Labradoodles that have no health issues, I know that there is a big controversy in the world about whether pedigree dogs are healthier or whether crossbreed dogs are healthier. Some people believe that by crossbreeding you can make them healthier, others believe you're just causing problems. To me, there's a bit of both, because we did get hip scores and eye scores and all the rest of it, and so the idea is to breed out the main issues of each breed. However, with Watson, his parents had the perfect hip scores. So hip scores basically tell you if there's any deformities or anything wrong with their hips. But both of his parents had perfect hips. Watson has hip dysplasia. So he has hip dysplasia from the lab. He has colitis. I can't remember exactly how these go. He's got allergies, colitis, and hip dysplasia, which is known in labs, poodles, and spaniels. I can't remember which way around it goes. I know that labs is the hip dysplasia. So basically what's happened is, because he is a combination of 3, he has got health issues from all 3. How has he got hip dysplasia when his parents' hips were fine? Because it can skip a generation. And so, although, like I said, that doesn't happen a lot, that is a risk, and I think that is completely unfair, because it's a very difficult life for Watson, because we have to reduce his exercise because of his hip, we have to give him specific food because of his allergies and because of his colitis, you know, so it's a real balance to give him a good life. My final reason is possibly one I should have said at the beginning, and is probably the biggest, and that is the coat of the Australian Labradoodle or the Labradoodle. Labradoodles, generally I have found shed. The ones that don't shed are cockapoos, cavapoos, and Australian Labradoodles. Labradoodles tend to shed. I haven't met any Labradoodles that don't shed, other than Australian Labradoodles. But the coat is a huge issue. And for those of you that don't know, I am a qualified groomer. I groom Watson myself, and I have my own grooming business at home, and I now teach one-to-ones to people, and I have an online course. The coat is so difficult to manage that it's, to me, they almost shouldn't be breeding Australian Labradoodles. They were bred to use as guide dogs for people that had allergies and couldn't have labs. But their coat looks so beautiful, but in order to keep that coat looking like a teddy bear, you have to brush them every day. And for a lot of dogs, that will be miserable. It'll be a miserable life because it gets very, very tangly, because their coats, Watson is a wavy fleece coat, and you can get wavy fleece, you can get curly, you can get human hair. Well, not human hair obviously, but you can get hair coats. There's different types of Australian Labradoodles. Watson is a wavy fleece, but he now has curly hair on his legs. And if I kept him at the length I like the look of him at, so when he looks like a teddy bear, I would have to brush him every day, and there would be knots in his fur every day, and it's not very nice for him. And so the only way you can have a Labradoodle is to keep their fur short, and be fair to them, is to keep their fur short, which is expensive. It means having them groomed every 4 to 6 weeks, which costs about £50. And so every month you're paying £50, putting them through grooming, which generally at these, groomers isn't the best experience, or learning to do it yourself, and paying £50, or brushing them every single day, which some people do, but very few do. And it's one of the reasons I gave up my home grooming business, was because people would be constantly bringing me their doodles and saying, I know that they're matted, I don't have time to brush them every day, but I really don't want them to be shaved. Can you brush it out? And at the beginning, I would spend hours brushing them out. So as I was being gentle, I would put all sorts of serums and whatnot on the fur to try and get the knots out. But I realised it's just not fair on them. It's not fair to make a dog stand there for 3 hours being brushed. And so you have to end up being firm as a groomer and just saying, you know what? You haven't brushed them, they are matted. The only fair thing to do is to shave them down. And people get annoyed at that. I see it on the forums all the time, that they get annoyed as if it's the groomer's problem, but it's not, it's the owner's problem. You need to be brushing your dog every day, sometimes more than that, depending on, if they get in water, if they roll around, which they love to do, the fur gets matted. So that would be my biggest reason for, I guess, warning people to really consider that aspect before you buy a doodle, because it's high coat maintenance, and not just the coat, because they have fast growing fur and that doesn't shed. You have to do their paw pads, because otherwise they can get mats in between their paws. I do Watson's paw pads every 3 weeks. You have to take the hair out of their ears. We do that about every month. It's not just their body. So this is a video I've wanted to do for a while, and I'm a bit anxious about it because, I know that there's so much controversy about dogs out there, as with any subject really, and I'm sure I've said something that somebody will be annoyed at, but I'm telling you my experience, and I'm not judging anybody. If you end up wanting to go for an Australian Labradoodle puppy, I say I can't judge, because that's what we did, but we did it without knowledge, and I feel like had I had the knowledge I have now, I wouldn't have gone down that route. If we would still like another dog, I will look at rescue centres. The first place I'll look at is the Labradoodle Rescue Centre, because we have Watson, and therefore we have to provide him that entertainment and exercise. So we could have the knowledge and ability to provide it for another one, if that makes sense. So I would get a Labradoodle again, or an Australian Labradoodle, or a Cavapoo, or a Cockapoo, or any doodle cross, as long as they didn't shed too much. And there are often ones on the Doodle Trust, which is a rescue place for doodles. But I would also look at Shih Tzus and Schnauzers and poodles, and things that don't shed or are low shedding, and I don't regret it, of course, because I have Watson and he is our world and we love him to pieces, and I'm so glad that he came to us, because we've had the money to sort out his his health issues. We've had the finances to sort out his health issue. We take him to hydrotherapy once a week. He probably should go twice, but it's very expensive. I do physio with him twice a day. supposed to be 3 times a day, but I just can't manage to fit that in. We have to wash him in an allergy bath once a week, whereby you have to stand him for 10 minutes in specific water with shampoo in it, and then you have to wash the whole of him. He is a high maintenance dog, not just in terms of exercise and entertainment, but in terms of his health. You have to give him supplements every day, of course. But the physiotherapy and the hydrotherapy takes up a lot of time and money. But like I said, there's no regrets from me, but it's just not something I would do again. So I'm going to shut up now because I feel like I've been really negative, but they're wonderful dogs. Join forums if you can. If you're still thinking about it after all I've said, join the forums that are doodle forums. There's loads on Facebook, and explain that, you know, you're hoping to buy one and you want to see people's problems, because people post on there all the time. Something I didn't mention is separation. Doodles don't like to be alone. I don't know why the combination of the Australian Labradoodle is that way, but they are extremely anxious when left alone. So if you're buying one and you're intending on being at work all day, I would say don't bother. It's not fair on the dog. It's really not fair, because we had to work very hard with several trainers, lots of time and patience to get Watson out of his separation anxiety. And even now, he doesn't like being alone. He will look very anxious when I'm leaving. And you can't leave him for more than an hour or two, partly because of the exercise, partly because of the entertainment, and partly because of the separation. So that's something else to think of. But like I said, if you are thinking of it, join these forums and you'll see for yourself the problems that people post. And that will give you more of a real, true idea of what the doodle is like. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to email me. I'll try and make sure my email address is in the comments below, because I am delighted to help anybody that has a doodle, that has a dog, that has any issues that I might be able to help with, or if you're trying to make a decision and there's a question I haven't answered, I'd be delighted to answer it. So thank you very much for listening. I hope this was useful. I'll also leave the link to the Doodle Trust in case you're interested in rescuing a doodle maybe, and I'll speak to you again soon.